I'm Claire Tymon. I'm here today with two hats on, really shiny lights. I am Senior Creative Producer at Future Everything, fairly new in post. And I'm also Director of a social enterprise called Shakers, which set up about 4 years ago. And I set it up as part of my exit strategy from working at Blackburn Council on a long-term project that I initiated called Blackburn is Open. Some of you may have heard of this project because I believe Wayne Hemingway was one of the speakers at a previous town talk, but I don't think he will have gone into it in the detail. I'm just going to check this. Oh, I think we're in the wrong order on the slides. Okay, yeah. I will carry on shortly.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm Bill Carr. I'm the CEO of Carpe Diem. We're a digital agency based in Warrington. The majority of our work is website development, but we do a lot of work in the high growth sector, so companies that are trying to get to the chasm that we spoke about earlier is where we tend to work up to. We do a lot of angel investment and tech due diligence. I started the company back in 1999 when it was still called New Media. Our offices didn't quite look like that, but obviously there's been a lot of change since 1999 to where we are today in the digital world. Not least Elon Musk's hairline. Whoever says money isn't going to change it, obviously hasn't seen Elon Musk before and after. Within my role, I also am the chair for the Institute of Directors here in Cheshire. So I do a lot of work with the LEP in terms of trying to get digital and business engaged with the local enterprise partnership. One of the strategy documents that they produced last year kind of caught my eye and got me thinking a lot about the future for Cheshire. And the graph or the map that you can see on the screen at the moment is a demographic map of Cheshire. And the key bits that I tended to take from it was our growth in Cheshire in terms of population is virtually 50% of what the average is across the country. Our population grew by 4.2%. Nationally, it's 7.8%, and if we play that forwards another 20 years in the time that I've been running the business, so another 20 years ahead, our population is set to grow by only 7.9% when national average is 15%. And the main points that you can see from the graph is that we are an ageing population that lives in Cheshire. There's not many green areas which are young and qualified individuals that live here. A lot of the town centres are generally deprived, where people are just managing or are in need of help. And there's got to be a real desire to try and change that within the region. It's difficult. Warrington in particular, we're not a million miles away from where you are here and probably suffer so many of the same challenges, which isn't helped by headlines that Warrington is the worst town for culture in Britain. It certainly makes it difficult to attract young people in the creative and art sector, and that's the kind of PR that we're trying to fight against. And we're also up against the likes of Manchester and Liverpool that are on our doorstep that pull a lot of the digital and creative talent out. We certainly suffer trying to recruit and bring people from Manchester, younger people, into Warrington. So we tend to recruit the older end of the employment. But it is changing. Warrington in particular is going through a major redevelopment in the town centre. There's a £130 million project that's taking place at the moment to introduce an IMAX cinema and lots of new restaurants and bring a lot more talent into the town. But it still is a lot of cart before the horse. It's okay building it, but Field of Dreams, if we build it, people won't come. And what we're trying to do is work out ways of attracting talent into the town and trying to keep them there. And it's not just about money. It's about creating a culture, about creating an environment where people want to be, where they want to stay and live, and not just commute from into a place of work. And there's some great examples. We've got opportunities that we can take advantage of being on the outskirts of the big urban areas. The roundabout there is known as Silicon Roundabout in Shoreditch, and a lot of the digital and creative companies recently migrated there because within the M25 circle in London, it became very popular because it was cheap. Companies could move in and start, and being on the edge of something is actually something that we should be able to take advantage of. So obviously I've had to edit the slide because I'm normally giving this in Warrington, but Macclesfield could be the next Shoreditch of the North. How do we achieve that? It's about attracting talent, and we're trying to bring an incubator and accelerator space to Warrington. This is a shot from Y Combinator, which is arguably one of the best, or if not the best, accelerator program that runs globally. And by having an accelerator in a home and a place where those companies can start and foster, we can keep those people in the town. Some of the programs that we've run in Manchester, we've had people travelling from Greece and coming in, living and basing themselves in the town and creating employment and creating growth. So within the accelerator space, when we do finally deliver it, it will help to develop not just employment, but community, general economic growth, a support network. Certainly when I started, I was never a founder of a company. The word founder probably was never even used. It's been coined a lot. I was T-boy through to MD, through to everything else that went with it. And that's essentially what we're trying to work with. We've been supported by the council to a certain extent, as well as private investment that we bring into the town. And as you see, Y Combinator, the example that I gave earlier, if we can foster an accelerator and get companies to move in, small companies that want to grow and stay, and the young people that brings, we can have a lot of success with the companies that spin out from it. So, thank you.
Yeah, oh cheers, thanks. Okay, right, it is my turn now. Okay, so, yeah, we're talking about placemaking and different types of makerspaces and spaces for people to create. So in 2013, I started a project called Blackburn is Open in Blackburn. At the time, the council wanted me to take over a church to develop it into an arts centre. At that time, there wasn't really much going on in Blackburn Town Centre. We didn't know who the artists were. There was a museum that was, badly attended. And so rather than kind of set off to open up a new arts centre, the town was suffering a lot from a large number of empty shops. So the council gave me 2 empty shops that were next door to each other to work in and to start testing some ideas, working with artists. So I worked closely with a designer called Wayne Hemingway, who's from Blackburn, and we created the Blackburn is Open manifesto. So Blackburn is open to ideas, to creativity, to business, and to you. And it was incredibly successful. We received funding, some seed funding from Arts Council over the 3 years. And we use that funding to facilitate ideas from the local creative community. And we used lots of different spaces across the town centre, from empty shops to redundant churches, to quite big buildings that were laid derelict, and came up with ideas on the future uses of these spaces, constantly promoting the role of making within the vision. And this vision then spread through a lot of the council's plans and strategies for the town. We set up an urban room. Don't know if many of you have heard. There's a national network called Urban Room that came out of the Farrell Review. And there's a definition, so it's a space where people can come together and talk about the local built environment. The building that you can see on the slide was an empty bank that turned into a nightclub that was closed. The council bought it. It's directly next to the museums and across the road from the town hall. It's a really, really lovely building. And because of the nature of the shop work and the fact that we grew this kind of maker community really quickly, there was a community there. They just didn't have the space to work and operate. And by giving them the empty shops, this happened. So over about 2 years, we gathered a huge amount of evidence and secured funding from Arts Council and the LEP to open the making rooms, which again was part of the Blackburn is Open initiative. And that opened about 18 months ago, and it's doing really, really well. This is a project that I led on through my social enterprise called Place Shakers. It's called Maker Shed. It was a national student competition to design a pop-up temporary space for makers, for emerging makers. So it was about having emerging designers design the space for the future generation of makers. And we created 2 of these. The idea behind them is, well, they're kind of based on the Wiki House model, that they're made completely from digital fabrication. And these were realised and presented at the National Festival of Making, which was started in May last year in Blackburn. So it's kind of part of the bigger, wider placemaking strategy for Blackburn. We've got a making rooms, there's a National Festival of Making, and the whole maker community are completely leading the way there. So, and that's, yep, okay. Yes.
Cheers, Claire. That's I've got all the pictures. Hi, everyone. My name's Ben McManus from Wavemaker. We're based in Stoke, so don't hold that against us. We are... Oh, the volume's going down now. We are a community makerspace at its heart. We were very fortunate in that everyone's favourite Stokey, Robbie Williams, had a charity called Give It Some, which over 10 years had given 12 million quid to the people of North Staff. So that might change your opinion on the man. I still prefer Slash, but... and that was managed by Comic Relief. It was getting to the end of the funding, and there was 150 grand left over. Nominate Trust then chipped in and said, here you go, we'll match fund it. So we had a situation where there was £300,000, and no one knew what to do with it, which is a very exciting place to be. So they asked people who either did innovative stuff with tech or worked with kids, how would you spend this money? We threw out a load of ideas around digital bursaries, like Dragon's Den for kids, digital festivals, and then we came upon the idea of, why don't we take the best bits of a Fab Lab and the best bits of a makerspace and put it into Stoke and have an accessible space for what Comic Relief say, hard to reach young kids. But I personally hate the term hard to reach because I think it's... is this live? It's bollocks, isn't it, really, hard to reach? Stoke's an interesting place. It's 14 miles long. It's made up of 6 towns, and at its widest, it's 4 miles wide. So our space in the city centre isn't really going to get to the hard-to-reach people. We're at a point now where we're looking to take stuff out into the community. Anyway, in our space, you will find things that you'd find in a normal Fab Lab, such as laser cutters, 3D printers, stuff for coding, the whole STEM into STEAM, which popped up before, which is very interesting. So things like Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, and microbits. The difference I think we did compared to other places similar is that when that money first came in, we just sat on it for a bit and we started talking to communities. We started talking to people. What do they want? What's there a gap? What's there a need? Instead of just thinking, Stroof, I'll fill it with 3D printers and then sit there and go, where is everybody? So we waited until we started working with community groups, and suddenly we found out they needed a slew of sewing machines, so we went and bought 5. Suddenly there was a need for a ton of laptops, so we did that, started hosting Minecraft sessions, and it grew. And so as our place grew, the communities grew that used it, to a point where it's not just about me and the staff that run it. Everyone else feels part of the whole place. So yeah, make, play, learn, and grow. We came up with that before Nintendo stole it as part of their Switch campaign, some people. And the big thing for me in all of this is play. Again, that was touched on a bit this afternoon. It's about an accessible, safe place that allows people to come in and play and experiment. I think there's a whole thing around language. I'm guilty of it too. We have a bullshit buzzer at work, and if anyone says anything with an acronym or something, we go burp. If we're doing a session, we don't swear in front of kids, by the way. If we're doing a session and one of the kids don't know anything, they hit the button. It doesn't say the rude word on it. To try and get over that barrier around tech. When digital confidence was mentioned in the previous talk, I think that's key. That's key for us as well. So we don't just say we're going in, we're going to do some code. It might be that we're just going to play with robots, and as a result, kids are going to learn code. I think that's 2 minutes.
So apologies, but I just... how am I going to do this? I'll do it this way. Yeah, I'm afraid I just threw these slides together at the break, but basically, my background is as like a film director. So I was a director of pop promos, and then the biggest recession that we'd had at that time hit. And what we found is, as students were coming out of these courses that they'd paid a lot to go on, there was no work for them. Or in my case, after being paid to do pop promos, I was actually getting asked to pay to make them. So the whole idea of the trials that young people go through once they emerge from education or once they're in education became deeply ingrained in me at that point. And so then I subsequently set up, after I did my filmmaking MA at Royal College of Art, I set up a company because I was looking around me and seeing that there was a nascent games industry happening at that time. And I just thought there's some sort of link here between film and interactive. So I started making films that you could go down different alleyways and different choices, and was threatened with failure from the Royal College of Art at the time. So I had to cut it back into a linear film in order to graduate. But it was the interactive world that impressed me, and so we set up an agency very early on, and with that I was doing, again, music industry and Paul Smith and stuff like that, but always using students and always going back to students who hadn't actually been in education that long and getting them to work with Paul Smith and work with Sun Microsystems and stuff like that. Just giving them the chance, giving them an opportunity. After that, I went to Nesta Future Labs, and I was director of production there for we had money from David Putnam that David Putnam secured from Nesta to bring, he wanted us to be the Disney of education. So we were bringing together people with ideas, companies, interactive companies, and education to try and form something that could be the future. So we're working with Hewlett-Packard, Palo Alto, BBC R&D, and Wearable Computing Department of the university. After that, then I set up Noise with the Arts Council. Noise was supposed to be a virtual festival, but just about 6 weeks to launch, they changed their minds and they wanted it to be a physical festival. So it became a physical festival pretty quickly. So we're working with MTV and Channel 4 and people like that to give opportunities to young people and young artists and young creatives. So one of the projects that we did was Noise Lab, and that was back in 2010, 2009, 2010. And Manchester City Council came to us and said, well, we've seen you've done a careers few days in the town hall where you had kids like queuing around the building to come and meet and show their portfolios and stuff to MTV and Zaha Hadid and people like that. Have a think about what you want to do next. And we immediately knew what the next step had to be, which was to get those young people straight out to the high street and you know, have them trial their stuff with a market. So if they made T-shirts, let them sell them, let them see what works, let's see what fails. And so just quickly going through this. So we had live performances there as well, because there was lots of, we had Don't Pay to Play, because you had to pay £1,000 to a bar in order for your band to play. So we had invited record companies down. So we had Mr. Scruff, New Order, people like that would come down just to teach young people. And that's at the core. So that's a bit of, we've got lots of national press and lots of artists doing residencies and people like Virus Syndicate and Brad Downey coming and giving talks. And so we had people that were not in college and were not in formal education, what they called the NEETs. They would come down in their droves, take notes, get people's autographs, say, how do I get this made? All that sort of thing. They could ask people immediately. And so more recently, I'm now on a government creative industries board, and so I've been working out ways to get that as a model and bring it into smaller places, and looking at matching where around the country there is, and you'll see Cheshire East in here as well, where there is less engagement with culture, where there is quick birth and death rates or no birth rates of startups and stuff like that. Oh, sorry. So basically, what we're trying to do now with Bill and with various people that have been to the town talks is to look at spaces around Macclesfield and try and find places where we can let young people have a go There are various different models, but if you want to find out more about it, just come and talk to me.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Thank you. We've got such a big panel and we're going to run a little late, sorry.
I've got to be quick, have I? Okay. Martyn Evans, I'm Professor of Design at Manchester School of Art in Manchester Met. So I'm going to tell you a story. I haven't got slides. I'm going to tell you a little story about the last 6 months of my life and the journey that I'm on and going on. So 1st of August, you would think that an academic is on holiday, you know, we don't do anything in the summer. Well, that wasn't the case. So as a result of the industrial strategy, the government decided to give some money to one of the research councils in the UK, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, so the creative end of the research councils, to say, we want you to make a R&D partnership for the creative industries. And they've given away 80 million, sounds great, doesn't it? But, so the largest amount of money they've ever given away. And they're going to fund 8 partnerships across the country that bring together a cluster of organizations or specialisms in the creative industries. So we sat down and said, well, the Northwest should have some of that money, shouldn't we? Obviously. And we spoke to a number of universities, because it has to be led by a university, but really importantly for me, it has to involve in the industry. So I went on a journey, and I spent, I guess, a reasonably busy August, a quite busy September, a pretty hectic October, and a very, very mental November, putting together a proposal that includes a number of universities, including Manchester Met, Manchester, Salford, Lancaster and UCLan, and then a range of organisations which I'm going to talk about in a moment. And the intention of our partnership, and it's an R&D partnership, so we don't do theoretical research, we do stuff. And my background is product design. I was a designer, so I'm used to doing things that really matter to people. So we have put together that proposal, and that goes through the crazy autumn, and we contacted lots of companies, and we said, what are your challenges? What are the things that would make your life better? And what I've been hearing today since I've been here, things about technological change, the recruitment and securing of talent, the skills agenda, et cetera, et cetera. So all the things you would expect. We ended up with a situation that lots of that was very near term. So everybody was thinking about their next 3 months, their next 6 months. And our instinct was, they're not going to give us £5-8 million to do things that are just going to make things a little bit better. So in the end, we proposed a partnership that is based, so it's called Creative Northwest, and it involves just about all of the Northwest. There's a lot of things that politics, but we are involving everybody, so that includes East Cheshire, Greater Manchester and Lancashire, and a little bit of Merseyside. And our idea is to do applied research through 3 R&D studios, and the studios are physical, pop-up and virtual studios around 3 themes. So technological innovation, so the feasibility of new products, services and experiences. That's the phrase the AHRC wanted us to use. Business innovation, about the viability of the product, service and experiences. And then user innovation. How desirable? Do we really want these things? So, crazy time, 7th of December, 3:37, 30 minutes before the deadline, we submit, and then nothing happens, you wait. Last week, when we find out, so what happened? So, I'm very pleased to say we've made the shortlist. So out of 59 original institutions that put forward expressions of interest, we are one of the 12 to 16, we don't know how many. I think I've got up to 14 I know have been shortlisted now. And we are working slightly furiously now to submit that. The most important thing, I guess, is to say that we looked at the guidance there, and they said many things. They said, but you can give money to companies. And we thought, oh, how much money can we give? So we worked out we could put together a proposal with a partnership that includes Weave and includes many other partners that could give £2 million away if we're successful, directly to the companies that are working in the digital and creative sector. So I want you all to have a wish for me, because I've now got 7 weeks to work with the partners to refine this proposal, resubmit it, then we find out if we make the final shortlist. And on the 5th or 6th of June, I hope to be sitting in front of a panel presenting Creative Northwest. And then I hope on the first week of July to be celebrating, saying, yes, we've got the money, and Creative Northwest is going to be the best R&D partnership in the country. So thanks to Denise and all the members of the Weave network to help, who have helped, along with many other organizations. So I'm around. Please come and talk to me. I will have a cup of tea and I'll be happy to tell you a little bit more about it.